Make no mistake, it's not a military operation or whatever it was called yesterday in Donetsk or Lugansk. It's a war against Ukraine.
That is the Ukrainian ambassador to the United States speaking about the current situation in Ukraine and the Russian invasion. Today, Canada and the U.S. condemning this, both leaders announcing more sanctions will be slapped on Russia. Joining us right now, Robert Baines is on the line, President and CEO of the NATO Association of Canada. Thank you, sir, for coming on.
Pleasure to be with you.
What is your read on the current situation?
Well, that's a big question. This is a conflict that has been brewing, as most people know, for quite some time, certainly most of this year. But the growing conflict, in a more general sense, is one that has been more than 70 years in the making. NATO and the rest of the current international architecture, something we usually call the international rules-based order, is a new idea in history. After the Second World War, we undertook so much death and destruction that most of the international community came together and said, never again will we let this happen. And so we tried to create a new order whereby justice was determined by rules and regulations and laws, international laws. And that would replace the old time-honored tradition of just allowing that person or organization that's most powerful to decide what is most just. Today and yesterday, we have had a collision between those ideas. The Russian president clearly thinks that the might is right argument is what should continue to dictate what happens in human history, and the rules-based international order, NATO, Canada, all believe that we want to live in a world where rules determine what happens. So that is the main collision that has happened just now.
I'm hearing that sentiment that you expressed over and over, that this has been building and going on for a long time, and a lot of Ukrainian Canadians texting into the show and coming on the show saying, we knew this was coming because it's been happening for a while, but still it's staggering and painful and awful to witness.
Definitely. Yeah. Well, I mean, it's again, you hit yourself. It's hope that keeps us, trying to negotiate and be diplomatic. And we never want to lose that. But at the same time, Russia invaded Georgia in 2008, Crimea in 2014, the multiple cyber attacks that they've continued to engage in. This is something we have continued to try to reason with, and now it's coming to a head.
I want to play a clip of our Prime Minister Justin Trudeau announcing more sanctions earlier today.
These sanctions will target 58 individuals and entities, including members of the Russian elite and their family members, as well as the Wagner Group and major Russian banks, among others. We will also sanction members of the Russian Security Council, including the Defense Minister, the Finance Minister, and the Justice Minister.
More sanctions, but the Russian president has been defiant in the face of international pressure and sanctions so far. It hasn't done anything. What impact, if any, do you think this is going to have?
Well, internal dynamics are always a challenge to kind of parse, to try to decide what is actually happening in this inner circle. But these kinds of sanctions do hit those that Mr. Putin depends on significantly. Most people in Canada know and have heard for many years that Russian oligarchs like to park their money in various European capitals, London especially. And with the United Kingdom joining Canada and many other countries, not only perhaps freezing, but also expropriating some of that wealth or a good degree of it, that could actually make a significant impact on the internal politics of Russia. And this is all part of some of the diplomacy and pressure tactics that are going on right now to try to avoid further bloodshed.
The Prime Minister was asked today after that news conference, is the West at war, and will Canada be prepared to fight in it? So I wanted to pose that to you. What is your sense of the situation?
Well, I mean, the sense of war has changed and fluctuated. I'd say that we have constantly been battling to maintain the rules-based international order against inroads of authoritarianism. Most people think of Russia and China as the two main, flag bearers of that. But it's a goal that has been, as I say, more than 70 years in the making, and it is something that is constant. Just because we have peace and security doesn't mean it'll remain that way. It takes constant effort. So I think in that way, it's more of a battle. War here, the United States has made it very clear. Mr. Biden has said no U.S. troops will be involved. I expect that would be similar for the rest of NATO itself. Whereas we will be almost certainly providing them with the Ukrainians with further weapons and kit to try to stave off this attack. But I think it's something that we are going to have to be wary of. Most Canadians do not think about their security. Well, that is a luxury we cannot afford. It's very tempting, right? You want to say, well, we should be spending more of our GDP on education, social services, health. That's perfectly reasonable, but you cannot divorce Canada from the rest of the world. We are not actually apart. We want to be in the world. We want to have a trading relationship with the rest of the world, and we want to be helping to make it more secure. We can't do that if we can't contribute to overall security.
What about our contributions? Let's delve into that a little bit further. What does Canada have to offer here? What can we bring to the situation to try and stabilize it?
Well, Canada's in a bit of a tough spot because we have been, over the past decade, putting off decisions about major procurement projects. These are things like our fighter jets. We've got a lot of different pieces of technology and kit that need to be maintained if you're going to have what's called an expeditionary capacity. So when you can be part of different missions of NATO or the UN for that matter. So both conservative and liberal governments have kind of put that off in many cases. Again, that's largely because they know that most Canadians do not see this as a huge pressure. I think we need to change that trend and make sure that we start paying up and seeing ourselves as, one of the many countries that has to shoulder this burden. It's not a luxury. It's something that we have to maintain in order to maintain the world that we've built with so much effort since the end of the Second World War.
Robert Baines, really fantastic to get you on the air today. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Robert Baines, the president and CEO of the NATO Association of